Welcome to the Real Estate Investing Podcast, where we help you unlock your potential freedom through land investing, real estate investing, and entrepreneurship. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Real Estate Investing Podcast. Today's topic, we're discussing starting with $500 to get your first land deal. I'm your host, Daniel Apke, joined again by my brother and business partner, Ron Apke. I think the biggest thing here, Ron, that we're going to go over today and why we wanted to choose this topic was really one of the most common questions we get is how much money do I need to start? And we're going to work backwards from there and talk about some of the most some of the cheapest ways to getting a deal, because that's the name of the game, is just getting qualified leads, getting qualified sellers that want to sell their property. How you get there is irrelevant. So we're going to talk about some of the cheaper, quote unquote, cheaper ways to do that in this episode, Ron.
Yeah, for sure. And I think people hear what we normally say or talk about direct mail. They look at the cost of direct mail, and then it shies them away from this business. But like you just need to sacrifice some time. And if you don't have money, you need to sacrifice some time. Like there's going to be more time input from you. But it's more than like we have stories. Like there are stories of people doing this, starting with a few $100 and just grinding it out, making cold calls, whatever it is. But first, Dan, if someone's starting in our business, typical with mail strategy, mail combination text strategy, like how much money should they be starting with that strategy?
We always suggest, $3,000 to $7,000 or so. That gets you a good amount of marketing money. That gets you, pooling your data, sending some mail, maybe sending some text if you want, depending on the budget. But $3,000 to $7,000, the average is what we kind of recommend. Obviously, the more you have in that, from that 3 to 7, the better. But we just did an episode also on overspending on marketing and how that can reversely affect you as well in a negative way. So yeah, $3,000 to $7,000 is a really good place to start with this. But like Ron said, this episode is going to talk about some other alternatives that we're going to get into to get, a cheaper start into this business.
Yeah. So let's get right to that, Dan. Like what strategies, if you were starting this business, first off, would you choose this business? Like if you had $500, $1,000 to your name, like, do you think the opportunity is there? Or would you try to save up some more? Like what would your strategy be?
It depends how quick you can save up more. Like, can you save up a quick $1,000, $2,000 in 2-3 months?
That's a good point.
It depends. Like, or you're going to be capped at 500. And what other businesses can you start with $500? That's the thing. It's like
eBay flipping business, like little things.
To side hustle.
Can you turn this $500?
But you still need the eBay to
000?
make. You're going to spend $500 to buy your product to flip it for $700.
Yep.
And you might lose it too. That's high risk. Same here though. But yeah, I think for me, I would get into it. I would get into it right away. I think you can do it. I think you just need to find a way to contact landowners, which we teach through cheaper methods that we're going to talk about. But I don't see any harm in starting with 500 if you have the right mindset. You just have to expect it to take much longer to get your first deal and much more time and work.
So let's really break down that $500 that you said you would go into this business with. Like, would it be just cold? So when we talk about spending money on this, like you're going to have data cost.
Yeah.
You're going to have skip tracing cost to get phone numbers.
Yep.
But let's kind of break that down so people can see. For me, when you're starting with $500, I think texting is going to be too expensive even.
Texting is going to be really tight, but if you can make texting work and get 10,000 pulls.
Yeah. But you need to also remember we got to pay for the data.
And skip tracing. Yeah, let's break down the records then. So how much does the data cost? Because this is what you cannot, unless you go directly to the tax.
Yeah.
The county tax, you can get them.
You could go, there are cheaper alternatives to get the list. So what we need, guys, is we need a list of vacant landowners. You can go directly to the county. It's not something we've never done it, but you can go directly to the county and try to get a list from them. The online lists are typically what we do for our members is 10 cents per record. So right there, we can't use all $500 on that, Dan. We can use like $200 on that, Right. So if we use $200 on that, that's going to get us 2,000 records. I think that's a really good spot to find a county, pool 1 to 20 acres of data. That should give you around 2,000 records, depending on the county, obviously. But let's try to get around 2,000 records for that. Let's spend $200 on data. And then the next 10 cents per record is going to be, the next $200 is going to be spent on skip tracing, right? To get their phone numbers, emails.
Exactly. And yeah, like Ron said, feel free to try to find cheaper ways to do things always, especially when you have such a limited budget. You can get your list for much cheaper look for cheaper list if that's what you need to do. The data might not be as quality, but that's all right in this situation if you're really tight on funds. And then, you got to skip trace to get their phone number. So you have the data, you pull the data in and import it into a skip tracing software, and then it spits out the phone numbers, because that's what we're going to need for these methods. Texting, I'm trying to think when we use like a company like REI Reply, how much it cost us, but you're going to be on a tight budget for texting. You can see if it will fit in there with $500. You're not going to be too far off. There are some really cheap softwares, but the thing is with cheap softwares is you got to be careful with the compliance and how everything's set up and stuff. Because then you can have a $5,000 bill coming at you from a litigator. Literally, there's litigators sitting on the other side of these phone numbers that they put into these counties, just waiting to get your money, and then they threaten to sue you and they do all this stuff. So you got to be careful either way and study, but there are some cheap texting sources. $500 is going to be very tight to text. I would go the cold calling route most likely if you have a couple $100 extra funds, maybe if you can get a texting going. But yeah, that's what I would do.
Yeah, so what we talked about is getting 2,000 records. Getting the records is $200. And then skip tracing, getting their phone numbers, getting their emails is going to be an additional $200 to $250. That puts us at $450, $500 total. But what you have now, Dan, is a list of vacant landowners, 2,000 people. Like that could take a couple months to call through.
Take your time on county selection. Pick a good area. Pick an area. You don't want to go in these areas where, if you're going after high acreages where like 3-4 acres is worth $500,000, pick an area where 5 acres is worth $50,000, 5 acres is worth 25, 5 acres worth 75,000. Like pick these areas. You're going to be very, picking too expensive of an area it kills some of your chances. I'm not saying you can't do it, but when starting out, you want to get a deal. You only have $500 to this business, right? So we want to get you a deal that's going to get you $20,000, $30,000. Like that's going to give you the best chances of getting a deal. Don't go after these $500,000, $1 million properties at first. Let's get a deal that's going to bring you 20, 30, 40, 50, 70 grand of profit in. And then you can reinvest in these businesses, try different things out, reinvest in mail and texting and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. So your goal when you start cold calling these people is basically see their interest. Your ideal situation is getting a deal at about 50% of market value, where you can either get a deal funding partner or you can even get an assignment fee from someone and you can make $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 like Dan was talking about. But those strategies are all different. We got that list. You need to start calling and seeing the interest, essentially. Watch our videos on how we review deals. We have live webinars every Wednesday. You need to learn how to review land and all that. That's a little more advanced, but you need to get on the phone. Don't delay getting on the phone. That's how you get leads. But the whole idea of this strategy, Dan, is sacrificing time for money.
Yeah.
You want to talk about, because this is timely. Calling 2,000 people is going to take.
And we didn't put in we don't have a dialing service at this point or anything because we don't have the budget right now.
It needs to be like 20 every night. Like you call 20 people every night, that's going to last 100 days. And it's consistency. Like if you can do that every night, I guarantee you will get a deal and you'll make $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 and then be able to reinvest into this business. But it's a lot of time, like 20 calls. If you get on the phone with 3 people, those calls can be 10, 15 minutes for sure. Mm-hmm. Like it's going to be an hour or so a day if you're calling 20 people. But I'm telling you, that payoff can be so big on the other side.
Yeah, exactly. And I would highly recommend when you're calling not to go after these infill lots in Florida where everyone's wholesaling. Go after bigger properties, bigger acreages. Yeah. There's just more margin in the game and it's less competition too. When you start calling these people, these landowners have never gotten a call before for their land. Like that's the reality of it. There's just not a lot of people cold calling these landowners. So 20 calls a night, 20 calls a day, stay consistent with it, have a script kind of, but also cater it towards the person. But the thing you got to gauge is the landowner motivated and is it good land? And if you can answer those 2 questions and it's a yes and yes, the land's good and it's motivated, there's probably margin in there if they're really motivated to sell. And then, we like to double our money on it. So if you can get it at 40, 50% of value, that's what we're constantly doing. And for those who are newer to this channel and newer to this business model, we've done thousands of deals and that's just the margin we've gotten when we buy and sell. There are other strategies you can tighten the margin with wholesaling and double closing and things like that. But you'd be surprised how many people want their money in 2 weeks. And what you do then is you get it under contract for 45%. Let's just use that as an example. And you close it in 2 weeks using a deal funder's money. So if you're new to this channel, there's tons of land investors who fund other land investors deals. And that's one of the things with someone starting with 500 is going to ask around. They're going to say, how do you fund your deals? We always get that question. Don't use your own money. You can use friends and family if you have it and give them a good return. Or you can come in the community, land investing online community, plenty of others out there. There's tons of people who fund deals and get deal funding and just split the profit. No credits, no, down payments, none of this crap. It's all just based on the land.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the way to do it. It's going to take time. It might, like, if you have, I can't see someone calling 2,000 people and not getting a deal. Like, if you choose your county, like, it's
at least the whole double close where you make 20, 30,000.
I would think you'd get a few deals, but let's talk about, like, someone does that, they're committed, Dan. Like, what are the advantages of starting with that kind of grinder mentality? Like, you kind of did it with your e-commerce store. Like, you were grinding. Like, it wasn't like you have a ton of money behind you. What are the advantages of starting with minimal funds and then making $10,000, $15,000?
You learned a lot more of the ground up, like what the motivation is of these people, what they want, negotiation skills. You learn the foundations a lot better doing it. You just understand the business. You have 2,000 calls under your belt talking to these people on the phone. Like, you'll have much, much more of a foundation, I think, set. And you also appreciate, like, it's like the wholesalers coming in. Wholesalers coming into land flipping, they appreciate the lack of competition and just the profit margins in the industry and everything else. Going from cold calling to texting to mail, it's kind of the same way. Like, you're going to appreciate putting your money to work in an efficient way, and it's just going to get a lot easier. Like, you can own a multi-million-dollar business for 10, 20 hours a week, literally, or even less than that. And that's the efficiency of mail and texting. You cannot do that cold calling unless you had cold callers doing it for you and things like that. But I think it gives you a good foundation of the actual business, Ron.
I think you understand it so well, and then you can kind of really and you respect the money too. Mm-hmm. Like, if you spend an hour every night for 100 days to get one deal and make $10,000, $15,000, you're going to respect the hell out of that $15,000 you made. And you're going to be motivated, like, okay, where do I put this $15,000? Do I want to do this again and do another 100 days, make another $20,000? I understand it. Maybe I can get 2 deals out of that. It's your choice, and you can be so efficient with your next steps because, like, you're going to be ahead of the people who have been sending mail for 6 months.
You're going to know the business so well.
You're going to know you're going to evaluate more deals than people sending mail. You're just going to understand so much. It's a commitment level from the start, but I think, like, that grinded out number of calls, like, the sky's the limit once you get that first deal.
Yeah, and I wanted to touch on something. So we did $500. We had a $500 budget for the sake of this, but I think depending on your situation, if you can add another 500, say month 1 or 2, even if you haven't gotten a deal yet, that next $500 can get you texting, or it can get you a dialing service to cold call. And those things can double, triple, quadruple the efficiency immediately of your business. So I think going from $500 to $1,000 can be a major stepping stone to get that next software that you need, which is a dialer, which essentially can call multiple people at once, because people aren't going to answer. You waste a lot of your time just ring on the phone. I'm just waiting for people to answer, leaving voicemails, things like that. If you can get an efficient dialer and or a texting platform, then you will overnight 10x the amount of leads coming in.
Yeah, without a doubt.
That's the next $500. So $500, you got a cold call. The next $500, you can start playing with dialers potentially and texting services.
It's some warm leads opposed to every lead's being cold. But yeah, I mean, it's possible, guys. Like, we see people do it all the time. It's a mindset thing, like, it's a effort thing, and you need to be consistent.
Another advantage of starting with cold calling that I meant to say and forgot was that one of the biggest advantages is it's gritty, it's hard, which means no one else is doing it.
Yep.
You go in wholesaling in Florida is different. These guys, there's thousands of people calling the same lots that you're calling when you're going for that 0.5 acre lot.
The land sucks.
And the land sucks. There's thousands of people going for that, and then you make $4,000. It's like, we're not in the game to make $4,000. We're in the game you're going to make $20,000 on your first deal. Our average profit's 25. And when that's just the game we're in, we can do that over and over and get more volume than those $4,000 deals also, because there's no difference between a $4,000 deal and a $25,000 deal. But when you go, as of now, if you go to rural America, like we're saying, go an hour outside of these cities when you're selecting a market, pick a good market, start cold calling with your $500, skip trace, do all that stuff, start cold calling. You're not going to have competition.
Yeah. And you'll have some of these older people who, they don't give a crap about our letter we sent them.
Yeah.
But they will respect you for, like, picking up that phone and, like, just doing it and building that relationship. You will close deals that a piece of mail cannot.
you're going to talk to a lot more people that didn't look at that mail too, potentially.
Yeah, 100%. Like get them on. I think doing it at night, Dan,
Make it personal.
you're gonna get pissed, you're gonna get angry people a ton. But like doing that at night, like you do that after work, like there's always time.
Yeah, you'll get used to those conversations, and you got to build relationships and learn how to evaluate land and make it really, really personal and customized to that person and make them feel special and treat them well and follow up. And if it's good land and they're motivated, there's 3 things you can do. You can buy it and flip it at 45%. 40. So anywhere between always start low with your negotiations. So somewhere between 30 to 50%. You can buy and flip and come in and get Ron and I's money or other deal funders' money. Step 2, if they can't go at 40%, try to come up with a number they can around 50%, right? Negotiate up a little bit. Use your negotiation skills. You want to get it at a good price to where you can buy and flip it because you'll make more money doing that. And then step 3, if they want $70,000 and the property's worth $100,000, then start looking at things like double closing. I think if you're cold calling and have those 3 options in mind, you start with trying to flip it. They just want more money. There are so many leads out there who will sell their property at $70,000 when it's worth $110,000, and you can double close it and put it on the market, get 90 days to do it, and just list it on the market and line up a buyer on the end. I think that's a really good option for cold calling because all you need is one deal. That's also time for money, right? Because double closing is a lot more time and effort and energy. You're dealing with the buyer and the seller and trying to negotiate it and getting your contract changed in 90 days and doing all this stuff, right? I think if you understand that it's going to take a little more time and money, you can make that $30,000. And that's what this is about, trading time for money. That's why I think double closing can work. And there's tons of people in our community starting to double close. 100%. It's just something, I mean, you're getting, like we said, taking advantage of leads in the last couple episodes, Ron, and how much you're missing out. You're missing out money if you only try to get that property at 45,000, don't go up to 70 when it's worth 100, right? Because now you have $30,000 in margin still. Even if you get 65, 60, 65, and you want to double close real quick, make a quick 30,000. There's so many people doing that now. Go with that mindset. Try to buy it cheap, negotiate up if needed, and then if needed, double close. And if you're cold calling, I think you can get a deal per every 200 if you do it right. I really do, in terms of just double closing. Yeah,
I agree. I don't have much more to add, guys. It's possible. Like this episode got me kind of excited, Dan, because there's so many people have $300, $500 saved, but they don't have $5,000 saved.
5,000 is a lot.
It's not like it's a lot of money to put into a business, and but you're gonna have these 22-year-olds who do this, and they're 24-year-olds. They start cold calling. There are 156 million vacant parcels in the country. Like there's plenty of people that can be dialed. Like that's gonna take a long time. It's a grind. Like Daniel said, like things being hard keeps people from entering. There's a couple ways it keeps people from entering. So hard things keep people from entering, and a higher cost to get started. Mail has a higher cost to get started. Cold calling is difficult. It's going to be uncomfortable at times, but like the potential is just unreal.
You'll reach people that have never been reached before. Like I can send mail there all day, 3 times this year.
They won't answer.
They won't answer my call. You start calling these people and you're going to get a hold of them, right? Yep. You might get 30 people per every 100 calls to actually have a conversation with. If we send mail there, we would get lucky to get 1 or 2.
Yeah.
You know? As always, thank you for joining. Please do us a huge favor and like and subscribe our YouTube channel and share this with a friend. It really means the world to Ron and I, but more importantly, it could help change the life of someone else. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you next episode.